So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a topic called third world countries. So this word, third world, is always thrown around. People go, "Ah, that's a third world country." So when you ask people, "What is a third world country? How do you define a third world country?" They'd say, "Oh, just like a poor country." And so I find that laughable. Like you throw this word around all the time, third world country, but you don't know what the word means. I mean, what that statement is. Like just calling a country third world country. What does it even mean? So, this goes back to the end of World War II. The end of World War II, there was basically, the Russia and America came into Germany, stalemate. The Germany was split into half, World War II, East Germany, West Germany, if people know history, you know. And the two superpowers, because the British had been removed as a superpower, they were the British Empire before. And, they were removed. They had the military power, naval power to be a superpower, but that was it. That was the end of their days. So the two other superpowers came in, was America and Russia. Now, if you imagine the Russians coming right up to Europe, if you look at the war today in, Ukraine, you see the Russians are a bit back because that was the start of the Cold War. People know about the Cold War. They don't know that the Cold War was the most bloodiest war, even bigger than World War One, World War Two. The Cold War was the bloodiest war, and people go, "No, it was the Cold War." It wasn't cold. It was cold for the two superpowers, America and Russia. It was cold for them. You see, like, they just basically asked all the countries in the world, the other 190 countries, you side with us. So, countries chose sides. Now, there were so many examples, but one of the big ones is Iran, Iraq. So Iran just goes, I think Russia's cooler. I'll side with Russia. So America goes, I'll set up a guy in Iraq, provide both sides with weapons, and you guys go and kill each other. And that's what that they did that in all over the world. You know, they were every country was either on America's side or Russia's side, and each one, was then in a conflict with the other country, that chose the other side. That was the Cold War, and so basically, like the Serbians had a idea, like so they had an idea. They couldn't implement it, being a smaller country, they couldn't implement it. So the idea was like, I don't want to choose sides. I just want to be independent. But the idea was, I'm not a fan of one of our prime ministers, but he did a great move, Nehru. So he did a great move, because India was under pressure to pick a side as well. So, India was looking, to its neighbors, and it said, okay, the Americans have already been like, in the 1950s, the Americans started funding the Pakistanis and all that with weapons, and it was troubling for India. But India still decided, like, I'm not going to pick a side. So they created the non-aligned movement, NAM. I'm not a Wikipedia person, so like I just speak off the cuff, or all that. My videos are like that. But anyways, it was India, Egypt, another couple of countries, I can't remember, and they just said, "Look, we're not going to be sides with nobody. We're just going to be non-aligned movement, like NAM. We're going to be NAM." So the Americans decide to, because all the countries that sided with America, Americans call them first world countries. All the countries that sided with Russia, they call them second world countries. And now this new movement came where India was, China was, for example, with Russia, so it was a second world country. Then India just decided to be separate, along with Egypt and a few countries, and they said the Americans called them third world countries. So the American media throughout the 60s, 50s, and 60s, they called as a derogatory term third world country. You're just a third world country. You don't want to be with Americans. So you're a third world country. Derogatory in the media. So it became a derogatory term. Nobody. The history of it is actually the countries that chose not to pick sides. So I think that they were the bravest countries, and the list of the third world countries grew and grew and grew because, African countries didn't want to be on either side either, because exploitation, war. If you choose, if you choose to be a first world country, war comes. If you choose to be a second world country, war comes. If you choose to be a third world country, then you can probably escape war. So that's what the whole third world country is. So I think you should be proud to be called a third world country. You know, that's the real history of it, not the what is portrayed and what people think. That's the reality of a third world country. Thank you, and please like and subscribe and pass the video.